The thing about picture-perfect lives is they usually come with high-maintenance frames. Mine was polished wood and gold leaf, until Richard decided I needed a lesson in respect. Our house sits at the end of Maple Crest Drive, like a magazine cover waiting to happen. Colonial revival, painted in that shade of cream that whispers, "We have money, but we're tasteful about it." The lawn is manicured to country club standards, the driveway swept clean enough to perform surgery on. Even our garbage cans are the expensive kind that don't look like garbage cans. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I used to take pride in all of it. Now, standing at the kitchen window with my third cup of coffee, I wonder if perfection is just another word for prison. "Victoria, the Hendersons will be here in an hour." Richard's voice carries that particular edge it gets when he's about to perform. Tonight's dinner party is his stage, and I'm the supporting actress expected to hit her marks without upstaging the star. "Everything's ready," I call back, which is true. The dining room table gleams under our crystal chandelier, set with the Waterford we received as a wedding gift 15 years ago. The menu is Richard's favorite, beef tenderloin with his mother's potato gratin recipe, because God forbid we deviate from Evelyn Hale's culinary gospel. Richard appears in the doorway, adjusting his tie, still handsome at 43, in that Silver Fox CEO way that photographs well for the company newsletter. His smile is camera-ready, but his eyes scan the kitchen like a general inspecting troops. "Did you remember the wine?" "The 2018 Camus, decanted and breathing." "And you changed the flowers?" I gesture toward the dining room where fresh peonies have replaced yesterday's roses. "White peonies, your favorite." "Good." He steps closer, and for a moment I think he might kiss me. Instead, he straightens an already straight dish towel. "You know how important tonight is. The Hendersons could be very valuable to Halewell Industries." Of course, everything comes back to Halewell Industries, the construction company Richard inherited from his father and transformed into a regional empire. Richard doesn't have conversations. He has networking opportunities. "I'll be charming," I promise, which makes him smile, that particular smile. The one that says he's pleased with his well-trained wife. The Hendersons arrive precisely at 7, followed by the Morgans and the Chens. Our dining room fills with the kind of laughter that sounds expensive, practiced, measured, designed to impress rather than amuse. I play my part perfectly, the gracious hostess, the devoted wife, the woman who finds her husband's stories fascinating, even though I've heard them all a dozen times. "Victoria barely eats," Richard announces during the main course, gesturing at my plate with his fork. "She's always worried about fitting into those designer dresses. I keep telling her she's not 25 anymore." The table erupts in polite laughter. Margaret Henderson touches my arm sympathetically. "Oh, we all struggle with that, don't we?" I smile and take a deliberate bite of beef. Richard's right. I should probably accept that my modeling days are behind me. More laughter, because everyone knows I was never a model. It's one of Richard's favorite jokes, how his practical, sensible wife sometimes gets ideas above her station. The conversation moves on to vacation homes and private schools and all the other concerns of people who've never worried about money. I refill wine glasses and clear plates and make the appropriate sounds at the appropriate moments. The perfect hostess in the perfect house with the perfect husband. After dessert, the men retreat to Richard's study for cigars and business talk. The women gather in the living room, where Margaret Henderson admires our latest renovation. "The crown molding is exquisite. You have such an eye for detail, Victoria." "Thank you." Richard chose the contractor. This is true. Richard chooses everything: the contractors, the decorators, the color schemes. I'm allowed to have opinions, as long as they align with his. When our guests finally leave, I begin the familiar ritual of cleanup. Richard disappears upstairs, leaving me to restore our perfect house to its perfect state. I'm loading the dishwasher when I remember his briefcase in the study and the quarterly reports he mentioned needing for tomorrow's board meeting. The study smells like leather and cigars and Richard's cologne. His briefcase sits open on the desk, papers spilling out in uncharacteristic disarray. I'm gathering the documents when I see it. A small jewelry box, black velvet, definitely expensive. My hands are steady as I open it. Inside, a diamond necklace catches the lamplight, throwing tiny rainbows across the ceiling. The card tucked beneath it is cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind Richard orders for his business correspondence. To Claire. Claire. Claire Donovan, Halewell's head of marketing. 28 years old, Stanford MBA, legs that go on for days. Claire, who calls Richard Mr. Hale in meetings, but whose laugh I've heard echoing from his office after hours. I close the box carefully and return it to the briefcase. My movements are precise, automatic. I finish gathering the papers, turn off the lamp, and walk upstairs to our bedroom. Richard is already in bed, reading a biography of some late industrialist. He looks up when I enter, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Good party tonight. I think Henderson is ready to sign with us. Wonderful. I move to my vanity, begin removing my jewelry with the same methodical care I used to close that little black box. You are perfect as always. His voice carries that note of satisfaction, like he's congratulating himself on a job well done. The Hendersons were impressed. I'm glad. I meet his eyes in the mirror. I think I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. I have a headache. He frowns, but doesn't argue. Richard hates disruptions to routine, but he hates dealing with female problems even more. I gather my things and walk down the hall to the guest room, with its neutral colors and hotel-like anonymity. From the nightstand drawer, I retrieve a bottle of wine, a good Bordeaux I've been saving for a special occasion. This seems special enough. I pour myself a generous glass and settle into the reading chair by the window. Outside, Maple Crest Drive sleeps peacefully, every house dark except for the occasional porch light. Perfect lawns, perfect driveways, perfect lives behind perfect facades. From where I sit, I can see the Hendersons' house, the Morgans, the Chens, all those people who laughed at Richard's jokes tonight, who smiled when he diminished me, who played their parts in our little suburban theatre. I take a sip of wine and think about Claire Donovan's diamond necklace, about hotel charges on our joint credit card that Richard explained away as client meetings, about the way he's been working late more often, coming home smelling like perfume that isn't mine. The wine is excellent, full-bodied, complex, with a finish that lingers. I should have opened it years ago. My phone buzzes. A text from my friend Daniel Cho, who attended one of my gallery showings last month. Hope the dinner party went well. Coffee tomorrow? I type back. Perfect party. Coffee sounds lovely. Daniel runs a small art gallery downtown. We've become friends over the past few months, bonding over our shared appreciation for artists who paint truth instead of pretty lies. He's one of the few people who asks about my photography, who remembers that I used to have dreams beyond being Richard Hale's wife. I finish my wine and prepare for bed, going through the motions of my nighttime routine. Cleanser, toner, moisturizer. The same ritual I've performed for 15 years, in service of staying young enough, pretty enough, perfect enough for Richard. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and make his coffee and iron his shirts and pretend I never saw that jewelry box. I'll smile when he mentions working late, nod when he explains another mysterious charge on our credit card. I'll be the perfect wife in our perfect house, on our perfect street. But tonight, lying in this anonymous guest room bed, I allow myself to think about Claire Donovan's necklace. About Richard's satisfied smile when he called me perfect as always. About 15 years of being grateful for scraps of attention from a man who thinks I should be thankful he chose me. The thing about picture-perfect lives is they usually come with high-maintenance frames, but sometimes, if you look closely enough, you can see the cracks. Lesson learned, he said that night. Funny, because I was just starting to study. The morning after a dinner party in our neighborhood is like the morning after opening night. Everyone's a critic, and the reviews travel fast. I'm deadheading roses in the front garden when Paula Greene materializes beside my fence. Paula lives 3 houses down and considers herself the unofficial mayor of Maple Crest Drive. She has opinions about everything from lawn care to political candidates, and she shares them with the enthusiasm of a revival preacher. Lovely party last night, she says. Though she wasn't invited, Paula has a talent for knowing everything that happens on our street, usually before the people involved know it themselves. Thank you. I snip another spent bloom, not looking up. Richard was pleased with how it went. I'm sure he was. Paula's tone carries that particular note of sympathy reserved for women whose husbands are the subject of neighborhood speculation. Though I noticed you retired early. Are you feeling all right? And there it is. Paula noticed the guest room light, probably made note of which bedroom windows stayed dark and which didn't. In our neighborhood, sleeping arrangements are as closely monitored as property values. Just a headache. Too much wine, probably. Paula adjusts her sun hat, a ridiculous wide-brimmed thing that makes her look like she's about to attend a garden party in 1952. Well, you know what they say about wine. It's supposed to help you relax, but sometimes it just helps you see things more clearly. I look up at that, meeting her pale blue eyes. Paula's face is carefully neutral, but I can see the curiosity burning behind her expression. She knows something, or thinks she does. I should let you get back to your gardening, she says. But Victoria, if you ever need to talk, well, we women have to look out for each other, don't we? She drifts away like smoke, leaving me standing in my perfect garden with dirt under my fingernails and questions multiplying in my head. Richard leaves for work without mentioning the guest room, which is typical. He prefers to pretend uncomfortable things don't exist rather than address them directly. I watch his BMW disappear down the street, then pour myself another cup of coffee and settle at the kitchen table with my laptop. The Halewell Industries website is a monument to corporate self-congratulation. Richard's photo dominates the leadership page, confident smile, expensive suit, the kind of man who looks like he was born to run things. Below his bio, the management team spreads out like a corporate family portrait. Claire Donovan's photo is in the second row. Professional headshot, Stanford MBA credentials listed prominently, 5 years with the company. She's beautiful in that polished, untouchable way that comes from good genetics and better skincare. The kind of woman who makes other women instinctively check their reflection. I study her face for a long moment, then close the laptop and walk upstairs to my closet. Hidden behind my winter coats, in a garment bag I haven't opened in months, hangs my wedding dress. Vera Wang, purchased during those giddy weeks when I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. I unzip the bag and run my fingers over the silk, remembering the woman who wore this dress 15 years ago. She was younger, obviously. More optimistic. She believed in fairy tales and happy endings and the transformative power of love. She thought marriage was a partnership, not a performance. That woman seems like a stranger now. I zip the bag closed and move to Richard's side of the closet. His suits hang in perfect rows, organized by color and season. His shoes are lined up like soldiers, each pair in its designated spot. Everything exactly where it should be, just like his life. His dresser drawers are equally organized. Socks in one drawer, underwear in another, ties arranged by pattern and hue. I'm not sure what I'm looking for until I find it. A receipt tucked behind his cufflink box. Cartier. Last Tuesday. The same day he claimed to be in meetings until 10 p.m. I photograph the receipt with my phone, then return it to its hiding place. Everything exactly as I found it, no evidence of my intrusion. Downstairs, I make myself a sandwich I don't want and try to remember the last time Richard and I had a real conversation. Not the performative exchanges we conduct in public, but the kind of intimate dialogue that happens between people who actually know each other. I can't remember. The afternoon stretches ahead of me, empty as a stage between acts. I could clean house, though our housekeeper was here yesterday. I could work on my photography, though the light is wrong and I'm not in the mood for art. I could call one of my friends, though most of them are Richard's friends' wives, and I'm not ready for more suburban theatre. Instead, I drive downtown to Daniel's gallery. The space is small but elegant, white walls showcasing local artists who paint with passion instead of calculation. Daniel is hanging a new piece when I arrive, an abstract that looks like heartbreak rendered in blues and greys. Victoria. He smiles, genuine pleasure lighting his face. Perfect timing. I just made coffee. Daniel is 45, divorced, with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. He moved here from San Francisco 2 years ago, seeking a quieter life after his marriage imploded. We bonded over our mutual appreciation for honesty in art and the difficulty of finding it in life. "How was the dinner party?" he asks, leading me to the small office behind the gallery. "Perfect," I say, accepting the coffee he offers. "Absolutely perfect." He hears the irony in my voice and raises an eyebrow. "That good, huh?" Richard was in his element, charming, successful, the king of his suburban castle. I played my part beautifully. "And what part is that?" I consider the question, staring into my coffee cup. "The grateful wife. The woman who knows how lucky she is to be married to such a catch." Daniel settles into the chair across from me. "You don't sound particularly grateful. Would you be, if you spent 15 years being treated like an accessory?" The words surprised me with their bitterness. I hadn't planned to say them, hadn't even fully acknowledged the thought until it spilled out. "Victoria," Daniel's voice is gentle. "You know you don't have to live like that." "Don't I?" I meet his eyes. "I'm 41 years old, Daniel. I haven't worked in 10 years. I have no money of my own, no career, no life outside of being Richard's wife. What exactly are my options? You're a talented photographer. You could... Could what? Compete with 25-year-olds for wedding gigs. Start over with nothing while Richard keeps everything we built together." Daniel is quiet for a moment, then reaches across the desk to touch my hand. "You're stronger than you think." I want to believe him, but strength feels like a luxury I can't afford, like those designer dresses Richard jokes about. Beautiful, but impractical for real life. I finish my coffee and prepare to leave, but Daniel stops me at the door. "I'm having a small opening next Friday. Local artists, wine, good conversation. You should come." "I'll have to check with Richard." "I didn't invite Richard." The words hang between us, loaded with possibility and danger. An invitation to exist outside of my marriage, to be Victoria instead of Mrs. Richard Hale. "I'll think about it," I say. The drive home takes me past Richard's office building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that houses Halewell Industries headquarters. I slow down as I pass, scanning the parking garage for his BMW. It's there, along with a red Audi that I recognize from the company directory. Claire Donovan's car, parked 2 spaces away from my husband's. I drive home and spend the evening preparing dinner, setting the table, playing the role of devoted wife. When Richard arrives at 7:30, he kisses my cheek and compliments the meal and tells me about his day. Nothing about working late, nothing about Claire, nothing about diamond necklaces or Cartier receipts. We eat in companionable silence, discussing safe topics like weekend plans and home repairs. After dinner, he retreats to his study while I clean up, both of us following the script we've perfected over 15 years of marriage. But later, lying in the guest room bed I've claimed as my own, I think about Daniel's invitation, about the possibility of existing outside Richard's carefully constructed world, of being seen as something more than a supporting character in his story. I think about Claire Donovan's red Audi, parked so conveniently close to my husband's car. And I think about Paula Greene's words. Sometimes wine doesn't help you relax. Sometimes it just helps you see things more clearly. The shower stopped. I hit send on the last file to my drive. Then I smiled at the sound of his footsteps. The Halewell Industries annual client appreciation event is held at the Riverside Country Club because Richard believes in the power of impressive venues. The ballroom glitters with crystal and candlelight, filled with the kind of people who measure success in square footage and stock portfolios. I wear the black cocktail dress Richard selected, sophisticated but not attention-grabbing, expensive but not ostentatious, the perfect outfit for the perfect wife of the perfect CEO. "You look beautiful," Richard says, as we enter the ballroom, his hand possessive on my lower back. "Just remember, the Yamadas are considering a major expansion. Be charming." Always an instruction, never a compliment. I nod and smile and prepare to perform. The evening unfolds predictably. I circulate through the crowd, making small talk with clients' wives, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, pretending to be fascinated by stories about golf handicaps and vacation homes. Richard works the room like a politician, all confident handshakes and strategic conversations. I'm discussing private school options with Mrs. Yamada when I see her. Claire Donovan stands near the bar, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She's laughing at something one of the board members is saying, her head tilted at just the right angle to catch the light. Around her throat, diamonds catch the chandelier's glow. "Excuse me," I murmur to Mrs. Yamada and make my way across the room. Claire sees me coming. Her smile falters for just a moment, a tiny crack in her professional composure, before snapping back into place. "Mrs. Hale, how lovely to see you." "Claire," I let my gaze drop to the necklace, then back to her face. "What a beautiful necklace. It looks expensive." Her hand moves instinctively to her throat. "Thank you. It was a gift." "How wonderful. From anyone special?" The question hangs between us like a blade. Claire's cheeks flush slightly, but her voice remains steady. "A family heirloom, actually. From my grandmother. Your grandmother had exquisite taste." I smile. The expression is sharp as broken glass. Richard always says the best gifts are the ones with meaning behind them. I walk away before she can respond, leaving her standing by the bar with her hand still pressed to those diamonds. The rest of the evening passes in a blur of forced conversations and hollow laughter. Richard gives a speech about Halewell's commitment to excellence, thanking our clients for their continued trust. He looks handsome and successful and utterly convincing, the picture of a man who has everything. Afterward, in the country club parking garage, I wait until Richard is saying goodbye to the last lingering client before I make my move. Claire's red Audi is parked in the executive section, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I approach it casually, as if I'm simply walking to our car. The key slides along the paint like a whisper, leaving a thin silver line from headlight to tail light. Then another and another, until the pristine surface is decorated with a spider web of scratches. The car alarm begins shrieking, echoing off the concrete walls. I step back and smile, genuinely pleased with my handiwork. "Victoria!" Richard's voice cuts through the noise. "What happened?" "I don't know." I gesture helplessly at the damaged car. "The alarm just started going off." Claire appears at a run, her heels clicking against the concrete. She stops short when she sees her car, her face going pale. "Oh my God, who would do this?" "Probably kids," Richard says, though we all know the country club's security makes teenage vandalism unlikely. "You should call the police." "Yes," Claire's voice is shaky. "I should call the police." She looks at me as she says it, and I see the knowledge in her eyes. She knows, but she can't prove it, and we both understand that calling the police would raise questions she doesn't want to answer. "I'm so sorry this happened," I tell her, my voice warm with sympathy. Some people have no respect for other people's property. The drive home is quiet. Richard seems distracted, probably calculating the cost of Claire's repairs and wondering if Halewell's insurance will cover it. I stare out the window at the passing streetlights, feeling more alive than I have in months. At home, I pour myself a glass of wine and settle in the living room while Richard disappears into his study. Through the window, I can see the lights of our neighbors' houses, each one hiding its own secrets behind perfect facades. My phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. I delete it without responding. Another buzz. I know it was you. I pour myself more wine and consider my options. Claire is angry, which was the point, but she's also scared, which is even better. Scared people make mistakes. I'm scrolling through my photos from the evening when I find it, a shot I took while Richard was giving his speech. In the background, barely visible, Claire and one of the board members are having what looks like an intense conversation. I zoom in on their faces. Claire looks upset, almost panicked. The board member, James Morrison, I think, is leaning close, his expression serious. Interesting. I forward the photo to my personal email, then delete it from my phone. Whatever Claire and James Morrison were discussing, it wasn't casual party conversation. Richard emerges from his study around 11, looking tired. "I'm going to bed," he announces. "Long day tomorrow." "Of course." I don't look up from my wine. "Sleep well." He pauses at the foot of the stairs. "You're not coming up?" "In a bit. I want to finish this chapter." It's a lie. I'm not reading anything, but Richard nods and disappears upstairs. A few minutes later, I hear the shower running. I use the time to check his laptop, which he's left open on the kitchen counter. His email is still logged in. A careless mistake that gives me access to months of correspondence. Most of it is routine business communication, but I find what I'm looking for in his sent folder. Messages to Claire that are just slightly too personal, too warm for professional correspondence. Nothing explicitly romantic, but the subtext is clear to anyone who knows how to read between the lines. I scroll further back, looking for patterns. The late-night emails increased around 6 months ago. The tone shifted from purely professional to something more intimate around the same time. 6 months ago, Richard started working late more often. 6 months ago, he began finding fault with everything I did. My cooking, my appearance, my conversation skills. 6 months ago, he started treating me like an obligation instead of a wife. The timeline fits perfectly. I'm about to close the laptop when a new email appears in his inbox. From Claire, sent just minutes ago. "We need to be more careful." She suspects something. My heart rate spikes, but my hands remain steady as I click reply and type. "Don't worry. She doesn't know anything for certain. Just keep playing your part." I hit send, then immediately delete both messages from Richard's sent folder and trash. Let Claire think Richard is dismissing her concerns. Let her think he's taking this lightly while she's panicking about scratched paint and suspicious wives. The shower stops upstairs. I close the laptop and return to my wine, settling back into the couch with a book I'm not reading. When Richard comes downstairs 20 minutes later, looking for his laptop, I gesture vaguely toward the kitchen. "You left it by the coffee maker." "Thanks." He collects it without suspicion, then pauses. "Everything all right? You seem different tonight." "Different how?" "I don't know. More relaxed, maybe." I smile at him over my wine glass. Maybe I'm finally learning to enjoy myself. He frowns, as if the idea of me enjoying myself without his permission is somehow troubling. Then he shrugs and heads upstairs, leaving me alone with my wine and my secrets. Later, lying in the guest room bed that's become my sanctuary, I think about Claire's panicked text messages and the fear in her eyes when she saw her damaged car. I think about Richard's careless email habits and the way he's been taking me for granted for months. Most of all, I think about that photo of Claire and James Morrison, and the conversation that made her look so upset. Tomorrow, I'll start digging deeper. Tonight, I'll savor the satisfaction of watching Claire's perfect composure crack. My phone buzzes one more time. If she finds out, we both lose everything. The message isn't addressed to me, but somehow it ended up in my inbox instead of Richard's. A forwarding error, probably, or maybe Claire was more rattled than I thought. I screenshot the message before it disappears, then settle back into my pillows with a smile. Too late, darling. The Halewell Industries board meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, which gives me exactly 3 hours to prepare for the performance of my lifetime. I dress carefully, navy suit, conservative heels, minimal jewelry. The look is professional, but not threatening, concerned citizen rather than vengeful wife. I style my hair in a simple chignon and apply makeup with the precision of a theatre artist preparing for opening night. The documents are organized in a leather portfolio that once belonged to my father. Bank records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, email printouts, months of evidence gathered with the patience of a detective and the determination of a woman with nothing left to lose. Richard left for the office an hour ago, whistling as he knotted his tie. He kissed my cheek and told me he'd be home late. Another board dinner, he claimed. I smiled and wished him luck, playing the supportive wife one last time. The Halewell building rises 30 stories above downtown, its glass facade reflecting the morning sky like a mirror. I've been here dozens of times for company parties and charity events, always as Richard's accessory. Today, I walk through the marble lobby as myself. The receptionist recognizes me and smiles. "Mrs. Hale, how lovely to see you. Are you here for the board meeting?" "Actually, yes. I have some information that might be relevant to their discussions." Her smile falters slightly. Board meetings are sacred territory, not the place for CEO wives to make unexpected appearances. "Let me call up to Mr. Morrison's office," she says, reaching for the phone. James Morrison, the board chairman, is a silver-haired man in his 60s who's known Richard since he was a boy. He's also the man I saw having that intense conversation with Claire at the country club. "Mrs. Hale?" His voice carries surprise and a hint of concern. "Is everything all right? I have some information about company finances that I think the board should see. May I come up?" A pause. "Of course. I'll send someone down to escort you." The elevator ride to the 30th floor feels like ascending to Judgment Day. The young assistant who accompanies me makes nervous small talk about the weather, clearly uncomfortable with whatever drama is about to unfold. The boardroom is exactly as I remember it from the few times Richard has given me tours. Mahogany table, leather chairs, oil paintings of late industrialists watching from the walls. The board members are already assembled, 12 men and 3 women who control millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. Richard sits at the head of the table, looking every inch the confident CEO. His expression shifts from surprise to concern, to something approaching panic as I enter the room. "Victoria, what are you doing here?" "I'm sorry to interrupt," I say, addressing the board rather than my husband. "But I have information that I believe is relevant to your oversight responsibilities." James Morrison gestures to an empty chair. "Please sit. What kind of information?" I open my portfolio and remove the first set of documents. Corporate credit card statements showing charges for personal expenses, hotel rooms, jewelry, dinners that weren't business-related. The papers pass from hand to hand around the table. Richard's face has gone pale, but he maintains his composure. "Victoria, this is hardly the place. Bank records showing transfers from company accounts to personal accounts." I continue, ignoring him. "Email correspondence indicating the misuse of company resources for personal relationships." More documents circulate. The board members exchange glances, their expressions growing increasingly serious. "These are very serious allegations," Morrison says carefully. "Do you have proof that these expenses weren't legitimate business costs? I smile and produce my final set of documents. I have receipts showing that the hotel rooms were occupied by my husband and Claire Donovan, your head of marketing. I have photographs of jewelry purchased with company funds and given as personal gifts. I have email chains discussing how to hide these expenses from board oversight. The silence in the room is deafening. Richard's confident facade has completely cracked, replaced by the desperate look of a man watching his world collapse. "This is ridiculous," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. "Victoria is obviously upset about our marriage, and she's I'm trying to protect the shareholders," I interrupt, "and the employees who depend on this company for their livelihoods." Morrison studies the documents in front of him. These appear to be authentic financial records. They are authentic. I've had them verified by an independent accountant. Another lie, but a convincing one. The board doesn't need to know that my verification consisted of 3 sleepless nights cross-referencing bank statements with calendar entries. Even if these expenses were inappropriate, board member Sarah Chens says carefully, they don't appear to be criminal. Poor judgment perhaps, but there's more. I produce the final document, the one I've been saving for maximum impact. A pattern of inflated invoices from contractors, with the excess amounts being funneled into personal accounts. That's embezzlement. This is my masterpiece, months of detective work distilled into irrefutable proof. Richard has been skimming money from construction projects, hiding the theft behind complex subcontractor arrangements. The boardroom erupts in whispers. Richard lunges for the documents, but Morrison pulls them away. "Richard, I think you should step outside while we discuss this." "This is insane." Richard's composure finally shatters. "She's my wife. She's a concerned citizen bringing potential fraud to our attention," Morrison says firmly. "Please wait outside." Richard looks around the table, searching for allies, but finds only uncomfortable faces and averted eyes. He storms out, slamming the door behind him. I sit quietly while the board examines the evidence, answering their questions with calm precision. Yes, I can provide additional documentation. Yes, I understand the seriousness of the allegations. No, I don't expect any personal gain from this disclosure. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah Chen asks finally. "Why expose your own husband?" I consider the question, thinking of 15 years of condescension and control, of diamond necklaces given to younger women, of being treated like an accessory in my own life. "Because someone should," I say simply. The board votes unanimously to suspend Richard pending a full investigation. They also vote to terminate Claire Donovan immediately, based on her involvement in the misuse of company resources. I leave the building an hour later, walking through the marble lobby with my head high. The receptionist watches me with undisguised curiosity, probably wondering what bombshell the CEO's wife just dropped on the 30th floor. Outside, the autumn air feels crisp and clean. I walk to my car slowly, savoring the sensation of having finally acted instead of simply endured. My phone buzzes as I'm driving home. A text from Richard. "You ruined me." I pull over and type back, "You ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone knew." Another buzz. "The board will destroy you too. You'll get nothing in the divorce. I don't want anything that belongs to you. You're making a mistake, Victoria. You need me." I stare at the message for a long moment, then delete the entire conversation. Richard still doesn't understand that I'm not the same woman who used to beg for his attention and approval. The house feels different when I return, lighter somehow, as if an oppressive weight has been lifted from the rooms. I pour myself a glass of wine and stand at the kitchen window, looking out at our perfect lawn and perfect garden. Soon, none of this will be mine. The house will be sold, the assets divided, the life we built together dismantled piece by piece. The thought should terrify me, but instead, I feel something I haven't experienced in years: freedom. My phone rings. Daniel's name appears on the screen. "I heard about the board meeting," he says without preamble. Are you all right? I'm perfect, I say, and for the first time in months, I mean it. Do you want company? I could bring dinner, wine, moral support. That sounds wonderful. After I hang up, I walk through the house one more time, seeing it with new eyes. The perfect furniture, the perfect art, the perfect life I've been suffocating in for 15 years. Tomorrow, Richard will hire lawyers and try to salvage his reputation. He'll paint me as a vindictive wife, a woman scorned, someone whose testimony can't be trusted. But the evidence speaks for itself, and I have more where that came from. My phone buzzes one last time. You think you've won? I almost reply, not yet. The pounding on my apartment door starts at 6 a.m., aggressive and insistent. I know who it is before I look through the peephole. Claire Donovan stands in the hallway, still beautiful but disheveled in a way that suggests she's been up all night. Her hair is uncombed, her makeup smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled. She looks like a woman coming apart at the seams. I open the door but don't invite her in. We need to talk, she says, pushing past me into the apartment. Good morning to you too. She whirls around, her eyes blazing. You destroyed my life. Do you understand that? I've lost everything because of you. You lost everything because you chose to sleep with a married man and steal from his company. I close the door calmly. I just made sure people found out about it. You don't understand what you've done. Claire's voice rises, hysteria creeping in around the edges. Richard promised me... What? That he'd leave his wife for you, that you'd live happily ever after. I laugh, the sound sharp and bitter. How original. She lunges toward me, but I step aside easily. Claire stumbles, catching herself against the kitchen counter. He loves me, she says, but the words sound hollow even to her. He loves the idea of you, young, impressed, grateful for his attention. But love, Richard doesn't know what that means. You're wrong. Tears streak down her face, ruining what's left of her makeup. We have plans. You were going to what? Run away together, start over somewhere new. I pour myself coffee, deliberately casual. With what money? Richard's assets are frozen, his reputation is ruined, and you're both unemployed. The truth hits her like a physical blow. She sinks onto my couch, her face crumpling. I had a career, she whispers. I was good at my job. I worked so hard to get where I was. And you threw it all away for a man who was never going to choose you over his comfortable life. He said his marriage was over. He said you didn't understand him. I'm sure he did. It's amazing how many married men discover that their wives don't understand them right around the time they meet a beautiful younger woman. Claire looks up at me with something approaching hatred. You're enjoying this? I'm not enjoying your pain, I say, which is mostly true. But I'm not sorry for it either. She stands abruptly, swaying slightly. This isn't over. Yes, it is. My voice is calm, final. You're going to leave town, start over somewhere else, and hopefully learn something from this experience. Richard is going to face the consequences of his choices, and I'm going to build a new life. You think you're so smart, Claire says, but you don't know everything. I know enough. She moves toward the door, then turns back. Richard isn't the only one with secrets. Is that supposed to be a threat? It's a fact. Her smile is ugly, desperate. The board meeting wasn't your victory, Victoria. It was just the opening act. She leaves, slamming the door behind her. I watch from my window as she stumbles across the parking lot to her rental car. The red Audi is presumably still being repaired. 20 minutes later, my phone rings, Richard's name on the screen. Your girlfriend just paid me a visit, I say without preamble. Claire's not my girlfriend. His voice sounds exhausted. Not anymore. How convenient. When things get difficult, you abandon the people who trusted you. Victoria, we need to talk, really talk. Not through lawyers or board meetings or dramatic confrontations. Just us. I think we're past that point. Please, give me 1 hour. Let me explain. Against my better judgment, I agree to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, public space, witnesses if things go badly. Richard is already there when I arrive, sitting at a corner table with his hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it's an anchor. He looks older than he did a week ago, the stress carving new lines around his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he says as I sit down. "You have 58 minutes. He almost smiles at that. Always precise. "What do you want, Richard?" "I want to apologize. For everything. For taking you for granted. For the affair. For making you feel like you didn't matter." The words sound rehearsed, like he's been practicing in the mirror. I wait for him to continue. "I know I can't undo what I've done, but maybe we can find a way forward that doesn't destroy both of us. I'm not the one who's been destroyed. Aren't you?" He leans forward. "You think exposing me makes you the winner? You'll be the woman who betrayed her husband, who aired her dirty laundry in public. Do you think people will respect that? I think people will respect honesty more than they respect theft and adultery. You're naive if you believe that." His voice hardens. "This is a small town, Victoria. People talk. They'll say you were vindictive, that you couldn't handle losing your husband to a younger woman. Let them talk. And when the divorce is final, when you're 41 and alone and trying to rebuild from nothing, how will that feel?" For a moment, doubt creeps in. Richard is good at finding weak spots, at making people question themselves. It's one of his most valuable skills. Then I remember Claire's desperate tears, and the diamond necklace, and 15 years of being treated like a supporting character in my own life. Better than feeling invisible in my own marriage. Richard sits back, frustration flickering across his face. "I never made you invisible. You made me into an accessory, a prop in your perfect life. I gave you everything, the house, the cars, the lifestyle. You gave me things. You never gave me yourself." "That's not true. When was the last time you asked about my photography? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about your work, your plans, your needs?" He opens his mouth, then closes it. We both know he can't answer. "I thought so. I stand to leave. Your 58 minutes are up." "Victoria, wait." He grabs my wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. The board investigation is just the beginning. There are people involved in this who won't appreciate your interference. Is that a threat? It's a warning." His eyes are cold now, the charming mask finally slipping completely. "You've opened a door that you might not be able to close." I pull free of his grip. "Then I guess we'll see what's on the other side." The walk back to my car feels like a victory march. Richard's desperation is showing, and desperate people make mistakes. Whatever he's hiding, whatever Claire meant about opening acts and secrets, I'll figure it out. My phone buzzes as I'm driving home. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email." The message waiting in my inbox contains a single attachment, a photograph taken through a restaurant window. Richard and Claire at dinner, but they're not alone. James Morrison sits across from them, and his expression is anything but friendly. The timestamp shows the photo was taken 2 days before the board meeting. I stare at the image, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Morrison's careful questions during my presentation, his quick vote to suspend Richard, his insistence that the investigation be handled internally. My phone rings, Daniel's name on the screen. "Are you free for dinner?" he asks. "I have something to show you." Actually, I think I have something to show you too. An hour later, we're sitting in Daniel's apartment, comparing notes like detectives working a case. He's spread newspaper clippings across his coffee table, articles about construction contracts, city planning decisions, real estate developments. "I started researching after your board meeting," he says. "Richard's company has been involved in some interesting projects over the past few years." Define interesting. City contracts that went to the lowest bidder, then mysteriously increased in cost. Zoning variances that benefited specific developers. environmental assessments that overlooked obvious problems. I study the clippings, seeing patterns I hadn't noticed before. You think Richard was involved in corruption beyond just skimming money? I think Richard was a small fish in a bigger pond, and I think someone's been using him. I show him the photograph of Richard, Claire, and Morrison. Claire said the board meeting was just the opening act. Daniel examines the image. Morrison looks angry. Or scared. I lean back against the couch cushions. What if Richard wasn't the mastermind? What if he was just the fall guy? That would explain why Claire seems so confident. She knows something we don't. My phone buzzes. Another text from the unknown number. Morrison's house. Midnight. Come alone. I show Daniel the message. He frowns. That sounds like a trap. Or an opportunity. I stand up, my mind already racing ahead to possibilities. Either way, I'm going. Victoria, this is dangerous. If Morrison is involved in something illegal, then I need to know what it is. I gather my things, feeling more alive than I have in months. Richard tried to warn me that I'd opened a door I couldn't close. Maybe it's time to see what's on the other side. You think you've won? Claire hissed. No, I said, walking away. I've just started the third act. Morrison's house sits on 2 acres of manicured grounds in the most exclusive neighborhood in town, a Georgian Colonial that screams old money and older secrets. I park across the street at 11:50, watching the windows for signs of movement. The house is dark, except for a single light in what appears to be a study. At exactly midnight, the front door opens, and a figure gestures for me to approach. It's not Morrison. Claire Donovan stands in the doorway, no longer the disheveled wreck who appeared at my apartment this morning. She's composed now, dressed in dark clothing, her hair pulled back severely. She looks like a woman with nothing left to lose. You came, she says as I reach the door. Where's Morrison? Inside, waiting. She steps aside to let me enter. He has something to show you. The house is elegant in that understated way that comes from generations of wealth. Persian rugs, oil paintings, furniture that probably belonged to Morrison's great-grandfather. But there's something wrong with the atmosphere, a tension that makes the expensive air feel heavy. Morrison sits behind an antique desk in his study, looking every one of his 65 years. His silver hair is disheveled, his usually immaculate appearance rumpled. A brandy snifter sits at his elbow, half empty. Mrs. Hale, thank you for coming. Mr. Morrison. I take the chair across from his desk, hyper-aware of Claire standing behind me. I assume this is about the board investigation. In a way. He opens a folder and slides a photograph across the desk. Do you recognize this? The image shows Richard and Claire at what appears to be a construction site, but they're not alone. Morrison is there, along with 2 men I don't recognize. Everyone is smiling, shaking hands, the picture of successful business collaboration. When was this taken? 18 months ago, the groundbreaking for the Riverside Development Project. I study the photo more carefully. I remember Richard mentioning that project, a mixed-use development, residential and commercial. Exactly. Morrison's voice is carefully neutral. A very lucrative project. For Halewell Industries. Among others, he slides another document across the desk, the original environmental impact report. I scan the pages, looking for something significant. The report seems standard. Soil samples, water table analysis, wildlife surveys. Nothing obviously problematic. I don't understand what you're showing me. Morrison produces a second report, identical in format, but with different conclusions. This is the report that was actually filed with the city. The differences are stark. Contaminated soil becomes suitable for development. Endangered species habitat becomes low ecological value. Flood risk areas become acceptable for residential construction. 2 different reports, I say slowly. One true, one false. The true report would have killed the project. The false report made it possible. I look up at Morrison, understanding beginning to dawn. You're saying Richard falsified environmental documents. I'm saying Richard was paid to make problems disappear. Claire moves to stand beside Morrison's desk. Tell her the rest. Morrison opens another folder. Bank records showing payments from shell companies to Richard's personal accounts. Payments that corresponded exactly with the filing of favorable reports. You're talking about bribery. I'm talking about a systematic pattern of corruption involving multiple city officials, environmental consultants, and construction companies. Morrison's voice is steady, but I can see the fear in his eyes. Richard wasn't the mastermind. He was just one piece of a very large puzzle. And you were another piece. I was the piece that made sure the board didn't ask too many questions about Halewell's sudden profitability. The admission hangs in the air like smoke. Morrison takes a sip of brandy, his hand trembling slightly. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Because your little board meeting presentation has attracted attention from people who don't like attention. Claire leans forward. The FBI opened an investigation yesterday. The FBI. Environmental fraud, bribery, conspiracy. Morrison's voice is matter-of-fact, like he's discussing the weather. They're looking at the Riverside project, along with 6 others. And they'll find Richard's involvement. They'll find everyone's involvement. Claire's smile is sharp. Including yours. Mine? I had nothing to do with... You were married to Richard for 15 years. Morrison interrupts. You lived in a house paid for with illegal money. You drove cars, wore clothes, took vacations funded by bribes. I didn't know. Can you prove that? Claire asks. Can you prove you never suspected where the money was coming from? Never wondered why Richard's company was so suddenly successful? The room spins slightly. I grip the arms of my chair, trying to process what they're telling me. What do you want? Morrison slides a final document across the desk. A statement saying that Richard confided in you about his illegal activities, that you tried to talk him out of it, but he threatened you into silence. You want me to lie. We want you to survive, Claire says, because if you don't cooperate, you'll go down with the rest of us. I stare at the document, my mind racing. And if I sign this? You become a cooperating witness instead of a co-conspirator, Morrison says. Immunity in exchange for testimony. Testimony against my husband. Testimony against the man who used you as unknowing cover for his crimes. The irony is almost funny. After months of gathering evidence to destroy Richard, I'm being asked to save myself by destroying him further. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning, Claire says. After that, we file our own statements with the FBI. Statements that paint you as a knowing participant. I stand to leave, my legs unsteady. This is blackmail. This is survival, Morrison corrects. We all made choices, Mrs. Hale. Now we have to live with the consequences. The drive home passes in a blur. My perfect revenge has turned into a nightmare. My carefully planned exposure of Richard's adultery transformed into something much larger and more dangerous. At home, I pour myself a large glass of wine and try to think clearly. The house feels like a mausoleum now. Every expensive object a potential piece of evidence. The Persian rug Richard bought last year, the kitchen renovation we completed in the spring, the jewelry he's given me over the years, all of it potentially paid for with illegal money. My phone rings, Richard's name on the screen. We need to talk, he says without preamble. Right now. I'm done talking to you. The FBI contacted my lawyer today. They're opening a formal investigation. I know. A pause. You know? How do you... Understanding dawns. Morrison. He got to you. He showed me some interesting documents. Victoria, listen to me very carefully. Morrison and Claire are trying to save themselves by throwing me under the bus. Whatever they told you, whatever they want you to sign, don't do it. Why should I believe you? Because I'm your husband. because despite everything that's happened, I would never deliberately hurt you. You've been hurting me for years. Not like this, not with something that could send you to prison. The word prison hits me like a physical blow. I didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I originally. But when you're married to someone involved in illegal activities, the law doesn't always make distinctions. I sink onto the couch, wine glass forgotten. What are you saying? I'm saying we need each other right now. We need to present a united front, hire the best lawyers we can afford, and fight this together. Together? After everything you've done? Yes, together, because the alternative is that we both go down separately. I close my eyes, trying to think through the wine and the fear and the exhaustion. 6 hours ago, I thought I was winning. Now I'm not sure there's any way to win at all. I can't trust you, Richard. Then trust your own instincts. Do you really think Morrison and Claire have your best interests at heart? Do you think they won't throw you under the bus the moment it becomes convenient? He's right, and I know it. Morrison and Claire are looking for scapegoats, and I'm the perfect target. The naive wife who can be painted as either an innocent victim or a willing accomplice, depending on what serves their needs. What do you want me to do? Don't sign anything. Don't talk to anyone without a lawyer present. And Victoria? What? I'm sorry. For all of it. The affair, the lies, the way I treated you. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that. The line goes silent. I sit in the dark living room, surrounded by the remnants of our perfect life, and try to figure out how everything went so wrong so fast. Outside, the neighborhood sleeps peacefully, unaware that their perfect neighbor's perfect marriage was built on a foundation of lies and illegal money. Tomorrow, the FBI will start asking questions. Reporters will probably follow. The whole carefully constructed facade will come crashing down. I think about the woman I was 6 months ago, obedient, grateful, content to live in Richard's shadow. That woman would be terrified right now, would probably sign whatever document Morrison put in front of her, but I'm not that woman anymore. I pick up my phone and dial Daniel's number. I need a lawyer, I say when he answers. The best one you know. What happened? Everything. I look around the living room one last time, memorizing details I'll probably never see again. And I think it's just getting started. You wanted respect, I said. Now you've got silence. The wind caught the papers on the table, scattering them like confetti. The only celebration left in that house. There's epilogue. 6 months later. The coffee shop in downtown Portland is nothing like the places Richard and I used to frequent. No marble counters or artisanal pastries, just honest coffee served by people who work for tips instead of stock options. I've become a regular here, one of those customers the baristas know by name and drink preference. The usual, Victoria? Sarah calls from behind the counter. Please, and maybe one of those blueberry muffins. I'm learning to indulge myself in small ways. After years of watching every calorie, every expense, every word, I'm discovering the luxury of spontaneous decisions. My apartment is a few blocks away, a modest one-bedroom with hardwood floors and windows that actually open. It's smaller than my walk-in closet used to be, but it's mine in a way that house on Maple Crest Drive never was. I pay the rent with money I earn from freelance photography, mostly wedding and portrait work, but also some gallery pieces that Daniel has helped me place. The newspaper sits folded on my table, Richard's sentencing hearing covered in a brief article on page 3. 18 months in minimum security prison, 5 years probation, restitution payments that will keep him financially struggling for years. The reporter calls it a stunning fall from grace for the former CEO. Claire got 12 months in community service. Morrison received 2 years, though his age and health problems will probably keep him in minimum security as well. All 3 of them cooperated with the FBI investigation, providing evidence that led to indictments of 12 other people involved in the corruption scheme. I was never charged. The FBI questioned me extensively, of course. They searched the house, seized financial records, interviewed neighbors and friends. But my lawyer, the shark Daniel recommended, made sure I was treated as a victim rather than a suspect. The wronged wife who discovered her husband's crimes and bravely came forward to expose them. It's mostly true, even if the timeline is a bit compressed. The divorce was finalized last month. I got half of what remained after the government seized the assets purchased with illegal money, which wasn't much. The house, the cars, most of the jewelry, all gone. But I also got my freedom, which turns out to be worth more than I ever imagined. My phone buzzes. A text from Daniel. Gallery opening tonight. Your photos look amazing under the lights. I smile and type back. Wouldn't miss it. The photos are from a series I call Perfect Lives. Portraits of suburban houses and the people who live in them, but shot in a way that reveals the loneliness and artifice behind the perfect facades. It's my most personal work, and apparently, my most successful. 3 pieces have already sold, with inquiries about commissioning similar work. I'm learning that there's a market for truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The coffee shop door chimes, and I look up to see a familiar face. Paula Greene, former queen of Maple Crest Drive, looking older and less certain than I remember. She notices me and hesitates, clearly debating whether to approach. Victoria? She slides into the chair across from me without invitation. I thought that was you. Hello, Paula. You look... She searches for the right word. Different. I feel different. I heard about the gallery showing. That's wonderful. We sit in awkward silence for a moment. Paula was one of the neighbors who testified to the FBI about Richard's sudden wealth, his late nights, the changes in our marriage dynamic. Her testimony was actually helpful to my case, but I know she gave it reluctantly. I wanted to apologize, she says finally, for not speaking up sooner. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to get involved. No one wants to get involved, Paula. That's how people like Richard get away with things for so long. Still, I should have been a better friend. I study her face, seeing genuine regret. You were protecting yourself and your family. I understand that. What will you do now? Keep taking pictures. Keep telling the truth. I finish my coffee and gather my things. Keep living my life instead of just surviving it. Paula nods, though I'm not sure she understands the distinction. Outside, the October air is crisp and clean. I walk slowly toward the gallery, in no hurry to arrive. For the first time in years, I have nowhere I have to be, no performance to give, no role to play except myself. My phone rings, an unknown number, which usually means a potential client. Victoria Hale Photography. Mrs. Hale, this is Jennifer Walsh from Portland Monthly Magazine. We're doing a feature on local artists, and we'd love to include your work. I'd be interested in hearing more. Wonderful. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? I'd love to discuss your Perfect Lives series. I check my calendar, which is refreshingly sparse. Tomorrow works perfectly. After I hang up, I pause on the sidewalk and really look around. The street is busy with people heading home from work, students from the nearby college, couples out for dinner. Real people living real lives, messy and imperfect and honest. For 15 years, I thought perfection was the goal. The perfect house, the perfect marriage, the perfect life. But perfection is just another word for lifeless, and I spent too many years existing in a beautiful tomb. Now I live in a small apartment and drive a used car and sometimes eat cereal for dinner. I have wrinkles I don't try to hide and opinions I'm not afraid to express. I take pictures that tell uncomfortable truths instead of pretty lies. It's not perfect. It's better than perfect. It's real. The gallery glows with warm light, filled with people who came to see my work, to hear my story, to witness what happens when someone chooses truth over comfort. Daniel waves from across the room, his face bright with pride. I walk through the door and into my new life, leaving the ghost of perfect Victoria Hale behind forever. Some lessons can only be learned by living them. Some prisons can only be escaped by walking away from the keys. Some stories can only end when you stop letting other people write them. This is mine.